Hi everyone, and welcome to my second creative channel-side chat. This style of content is designed to cover essential deck building concepts in an approachable and understandable manner. Hopefully you come away with learning something new. Unlike most of my creative deck profiles, no finished deck builds will be showcased, and no raid plays will be found, only an insightful lecture. So sit back, enjoy the chat, and open your mind to learning something new. Following the success of my first channel-side chat, the topic of today's channel-side chat, engines and when to use them, part 2. The first engine I'm going to be talking about in today's video is the Fluffle Vendor engine, centered around Fluffle Wings and Toy Vendor. Whenever Fluffle Wings is in your graveyard, and you have another Fluffle in your graveyard and a Toy Vendor on your field, you can banish Fluffle Wings and one other Fluffle in your graveyard in order to draw one card, send Toy Vendor to the graveyard, then draw an additional card. After you send that Toy Vendor to the graveyard, it will trigger searching another Fluffle monster from your deck to your hand. Overall, this play is a net +2 in card advantage with 2 draws and 1 Fluffle search at the sheer only cost of a Toy Vendor, and 2 banishes from your graveyard. So overall, this combo is very effective for many decks. But what makes this engine work so well is the existence of Fluffle Bear, a level 3 Fluffle that can send itself from the hand to the graveyard in order to set Toy Vendor directly to your field. So not only does this prime your field with a Vendor, but it also primes your graveyard with a second Fluffle to banish with Wings. To make this engine consistent is the existence of Fluffle Dog, a level 4 Fluffle that, whenever it's normal or special summoned from the hand, will tutor any Fluffle monster. Use this to grab Wings if you already have Bear, or use it to grab Bear if you already have Wings. Or just use it to grab Wings if you already have a Toy Vendor, that works too. Altogether, this engine is fairly big at 10 cards, but it's very effective at providing you consistent card advantage and lots of extra draws. And don't forget the extra effect of Toy Vendor, its first effect, as you can discard any card to draw a card and test your luck. If you drew a Fluffle monster, congrats, you get to special summon anything from your hand. And if you didn't, that discard just netted you 1 mill to the graveyard, synergizing extremely well with decks that want to get cards into the graveyard however they get there. So now that you know the overall function of this engine, the core components of it, let's talk about its benefits. First, the draws from Fluffle Wings can accelerate any deck, especially those that want plenty of cards to use as costs. Because you're going to get that net card advantage from the Wings play, and Vendor triggers however it's sent to the graveyard. So you can discard the Vendor to begin with to search your dog, who then can search your bear, who then can search your second copy of Vendor. And overall, this chain just continues on and on. The second major benefit of this engine is that it synergizes extremely well with any themes that just want to mill more cards and get more of their cards into the graveyard. If both these conditions apply, this is truly a great option, only if you want to dedicate that full 10 cards of your main deck for an engine. This is the double-edged sword of running or considering this, is that it's just so big. Taking 10 slots to maximize its consistency and to guarantee that you'll be able to resolve it consistently throughout a tournament, that's a high deck building cost that has to be factored in whenever you consider building this engine. If you want some inspiration on how to use this, and use one of my examples, feel free to check out one of my older creative deck strategy articles from a few years ago, specifically CDS Tierra's Angels, that combines this Fluffle engine alongside the Infernoid archetype. I've even provided a link in the video description below, so feel free to check that out at your leisure. Moving right along, I'm going to race onwards to the Speedroid engine. While you may be familiar with the first half of this engine, I'm hoping that the second half is really where I start to grab your inspiration and teach you something new. Let's start out with the bread and butter of any Speedroid combo, Speedroid Terratop, a level 3 monster that can special summon itself from the hand whenever you control no monsters. Then, Whenever it is summoned, you get to tutor one Speedroid monster from your deck and add it to your hand, except for it's another copy of itself, which really doesn't matter since Terratop is now limited due to being so powerful. The primary target that you're going to tutor is Speedroid Teke Tumborg, a level 3 that can also special summon itself from the hand, just this time whenever you control a wind monster. In other words, you summon Terratop, you search Teke Tumborg, and then you can special summon this as well. So without using your normal summon, you get 2 level 3 monsters that can be immediately used for either a Link or Xyz summon with no conditions at all. That part of the engine is nothing new. But with the rise of the Duelist Pack Synchro Storm, this engine can actually be expanded for a couple other decks, with the addition of a new level 4 tuner monster, Speedroid Fuki Madoshi Piper. Whenever Piper is normal or special summoned, you get to excavate cards from the top of your deck equal to the number of other wind monsters you control, and then add one of those excavated cards from your deck to your hand. If you want to tutor your Fuki Madoshi straight from the deck, you even can, with Teke Tumborg's second effect, which can be attributed in order to special summon any Speedroid tuner directly from your deck. Now where Fuki is really specially important is that this, at bare minimum, if it's summoned while you only have one other wind monster, you just get one draw, which is whatever card you excavate from the top of your deck. However, if you have a full field of wind monsters before you really pull the hammer down and activate Teke Tumborg's effect, you can look at up to 5 different cards, or 4 or 5 different cards really if you count the extra monster zone, and pull the best card from that to add to your hand, which is sort of like a souped up pot of duality that doesn't lock you into anything except for wind monsters. So that means this engine works extremely well with wind archetypes, and that's the whole point of this expanded engine. Moving along to the last card, I also highly recommend trying one copy of Speedroid Denden Daiko Duke, as that can be used to special summon your Fuki back from the graveyard for future turns, while also unlocking level 6 wind synchros rather than just relying on level 7 wind synchros after you go Terratop into Teke Tumborg into Fuki. Or Daiko in this case. So let's talk about the benefits of this engine. And again, this is hopefully quite clear. This engine gives you controlled access to more of your combo pieces as long as you are running a wind deck. Just the fact that the minimum of this play is a draw 1 can accelerate any win strategy. And remember, all your combos don't actually have to start with Terratop in order to work. Draw Teke Tumborg with any other wind monster, and you can summon that wind monster first, then special summon Teke Tumborg, use its effect for Fuki, and still get that draw 1. On the flip side, this engine really does provide the most value when using a wind archetype, so it doesn't really work as well when you try to fit it into some other deck that wants to special summon other attributes of monsters. If you need some ideas, something like Harpy Lady, Lyrilusec, or even Ritual Beast are decent options to consider. But otherwise, it simply won't offer as much bang for your buck as another engine, such as the Fluffle engine I already covered in this video. But overall, same with the first engine, you don't necessarily have to have too much room to expand the engine, because the engine itself is already pretty lean, and you don't need to be really considering running anything else. The only thing I can really recommend is a copy of High Speedroid Rubber Band Shooter, as that can be used by banishing a Wind Synchro from your extra deck, just to tutor 2 more of your Speedroid cards for future turns, or 1 of 2 of your Speedroid cards for future turns, or its first effect can be used to get an additional normal summon of a wind monster, which, as long as you're running a wind deck that can also synchro summon, that can also have an effect. Which is really why this engine overall is really limited to those wind decks that I keep on referring to. Onwards to the next engine, but this time we're looking at a flexible Earth archetype, the Scrap Monsters. The Scrap archetype revolved around destroying their own monsters with scrap effects, triggering their ability to recover scrap monsters from the graveyard and eventually muster enough advantage to make scrap synchro monsters. That said, the theme never truly functioned well enough as a standalone archetype, but it does make for quite an engine for getting monsters onto the board, as I'm going to discuss today. Let's start with a starter of this engine, Scrap Recycler. Whenever he is normal summoned, you can send one machine-type monster from your deck to the graveyard. In most cases, you'll be sending a single copy of Crystron Rosenix, a level 4 water machine that can banish itself from the graveyard in order to summon one Crystron token to the field, just a generic machine-type monster. But that token can't be tributed, which is perfectly fine because we're going to be immediately link summoning with it. So using your copy of Recycler and your token, link summon out Scrap Wyvern, a link 2 monster that's made with 2 monsters, including a scrap. Now before you start using Wyvern's effect, it's important that you get at least some other card onto the field. And if your opponent has one already, that works great, but if he doesn't or she doesn't, you gotta have something else to put on the field, whether it's a field spell card or a set spell or trap, or even another monster that you can just board. That's important before you start triggering Scrap Wyvern's effect for the full benefits of this engine. Once you do that, you can use Wyvern's first effect, targeting that Scrap Recycler in your graveyard to special summon it and then destroy one card you control, specifically that scrap monster you just summoned. Because Wyvern's second effect will then trigger, as whenever another face-up scrap monster is destroyed by a card effect, you get to special summon one scrap monster from your deck, then destroy that one card in the field that you made sure was there before activating its first effect. As for the scrap you're summoning from the deck, that would be Scrap Golem, a level 5 rock monster that can also use its effect to summon any level 4 or lower scrap monster from your graveyard to either player's field, but most of the time you'll be summoning it to your own. And that's right, we're summoning Scrap Recycler back for a third time. Whenever it's summoned back this third time, its first effect will trigger once again, sending a machine-type monster from your deck to the graveyard. While if you're running a machine deck, you can send any machine that wants to live in the graveyard. This engine, if you're running it at any other build, should send something pretty generic, like Ismek Orochi, the Serpentron Sky Slasher, as it can summon itself back from the graveyard. Just to recap why you want to run something that summons itself back, your end board will be Wyvern, Orochi, Golem, and Recycler. That's 4 monsters, one of them being a Link 2, which is perfect for going into any Link 5 option, such as the upcoming Boral End Dragon, Underworld Goddess of the Closed World, or even Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess with 4 monsters. Any of these options are great, especially since they all originated from one summon and maybe one destroyed card, that summon being Scrap Recycler. So what's any other benefit to using this ragtag group of machines and scrap monsters? Beyond setting up that favorite Link 4 or Link 5 summon, this is a very established board at the cost of a very small engine, because you really only need to run 6 cards in the main deck, and then Scrap Wyvern in the extra deck and whatever Link you want to go into summoning. So whether it's a Link 5 or a Link 4, and that could already be something you're running already in the extra deck. But where this engine starts to deviate from the other ones I've talked about is this can be greatly expanded to being almost half of a main deck. And let's talk about why. One of the most recent additions to the archetype was Scrap Raptor, an Earth dinosaur that offers 2 very good effects for making this engine even more powerful. First, its first effect lets you target a monster you control to destroy, probably should be a scrap monster, and then you get to normal summon a scrap monster as an additional normal summon during the turn. Secondly, whenever that card is destroyed by the effect of a scrap card and sent to your graveyard, such as destroyed by itself, you get to add 1 non-tuner scrap monster from your deck to your hand. That's right, if you open with Raptor, you can destroy itself, search your Recycler, and gain that extra normal summon for Recycler to kick off your scrap combo. And Scrap Raptor, since it's a dinosaur, is highly searchable itself. With 3 copies of Scrapyard, which just adds a scrap tuner from your deck to your hand, and or 3 copies of Fossil Dig, you could be running up to 9 copies of that starter, Raptor, With the additional 3 recyclers, that means 12 cards in your deck can really kick off your combo and get it started. If you are running that many cards, consider also checking in Scrap Chimera, as it is a level 4 that summons a Scrap Tuner from the graveyard whenever it's summoned. So if you use Raptor, destroy itself, and search Chimera instead, that's 2 level 4 monsters for an immediate rank 4 Xyz summon using 2 materials. Or, of course, synchro summoning into the good old-fashioned Scrap Dragon. If you really want to make the most of your Scrap Wyvern's destruction and want to expand this engine even more, consider running Machina Citadel, as it can be summoned whenever an Earth Machine is destroyed by a card effect. Which is the Earth Machine that you're going to be destroying with the card effect? That's right, your Recycler. So all these cards play together and really can be used as an effective engine anywhere from 3, 6 to really even 20 cards if you want to expand it pretty large. And that's the beauty of the Scrap engine. So in short, the basic engine may be small, the expanded engine may be big, and it's up to you as a deck builder to figure out what's the perfect size if you've discovered that this engine is right for you. More Fluffle cards? Not so fast, as the next engine I'm covering here actually shifts to the other half of these paired archetypes, to the Frightfur and Edge Imp side. This Frightfur engine is all about accelerating fusion decks, especially those that rely upon fiends and or dark monsters as your fusion material, or archetypes that just generically need the general polymerization in order to unlock their major plays. While the Fluffle or Frightfur deck itself meets that criteria, this engine also translates very well to other themes, which is why I'm highlighting it today as a standalone engine. It all begins and ends with Frightfur Patchwork, a normal spell that can be used to tutor 1 Edge Imp monster and 1 polymerization from your deck to your hand. In most cases, you're going to be tutoring Edge Imp Chain, which is a level 4 fiend, what we'll talk a little bit more about later. Inherently, that resolution of Frightfur Patchwork nets you a +1 in card advantage, your fusion spell, and a monster that you can use as material. But even if you don't, Edge Imp Chain will be important, as whenever it is sent from either the hand or field to the graveyard, you get to tutor 1 Frightfur card from your deck to your hand. What Frightfur card might you add? Oh yeah, that's right, another copy of Patchwork, continuing the cycle. Inherently, this play of continuously cycling between Patchwork, Chain, and getting polymerization along the way is just a tad more flexible version of the Invoked engine, which I talked about in my first video. Because you're still adding a fusion spell, you're still adding an extra monster for card advantage, but this can really be used for any fusion monster using monsters in the field or the hand. Whereas Invocation can only be used for a fusion summon of a generic monster if you're only using materials from the hand. So at the end of the day, you still have the looping power, but you're more constricted to not banishing from your opponent's graveyard when you want to summon Invoked Mechaba. In describing this engine, I've really already talked about the benefits of it. It's a consistent loop of access to both fusion fodder and polymerization itself, and it doesn't impose any restrictions on your gameplay, nor does it even require normal summon or extra deck space to make work. So let's talk about some themes that this engine works extremely well with. First that comes to my mind is Predaplant, as the entire that extra dark monster and the polymerization can really come in handy when offsetting some of their more resource-intensive plays. But Edge Imp Chain itself also particularly synergizes with Super Polymerization and Predaplant Orpheus Scorpio that the theme typically runs and that both require a discard as a cost. Another pairing is with the Relinquish strategy, specifically Millennium Eyes Restraint, as you can even run this engine with the Despia or the Destiny Hero monsters. The dark archetypes that use fusions go on and on, so the options truly are endless for you to discover. As an additional expansion to this engine, consider teching in a copy of Edge Imp Sabers, or more copies of Polymerization, as both tie in and provide the ability to resolve multiple patchworks in a duel, because otherwise, once you tutor your one copy of Polymerization that I'm showing in the video, you're not going to be able to resolve patchwork again until that gets back into the deck. So think of this option just like Illusion of Chaos and Magician Souls engine, that Saber's tech that I was talking about, as that would return any card from your hand back to the deck. But this time, Saber's also gives you a fodder on the field just generically as Link summoned material. So overall, this is the power of the Frightfur engine. And I'm going to stick with the fusion theme here and move on to yet another fusion engine next. This next engine on my list is probably the most ubiquitous from this entire video, in that it's garnered some mainstream attention across both the OCG and now in the TCG, now that the Fusion Monster has been released. This engine centers around the Fusion Monster, Destiny Hero, Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. Enforcer carries a quick effect to destroy one card you control and one other card in the field. Additionally, whenever that Phoenix Enforcer is destroyed, its second effect triggers to special summon one Destiny Hero monster from your graveyard during the next standby phase. If you don't see the connection yet between its two effects, or why this effect is even powerful, let me explain. Whenever you destroy itself with its first effect, that means that Phoenix Enforcer is coming back during the next turn. Plus, you got to destroy a card on the opponent's field without targeting. And on the next turn, you can do the same thing again. You can loop the same thing, the same play for the rest of the duel if you so like. Now, a fusion monster itself is really only as good as its signature fusion spell to bring it out. And this is also where the Destiny Hero have a great advantage. Fusion Destiny is a normal fusion spell, that fusion summons any fusion monster from your deck that lists a Destiny Hero monster as material by sending materials from either your hand or your deck as fusion materials. In this case, you're going to be using two Destiny Hero monsters, and the best options, in my opinion, are Destiny Hero Dasher and Destiny Hero Celestial. So let me talk about why each of these individually are the best options. Dasher is your level 6 or higher that is required for Phoenix Enforcer summon. And while it is in your graveyard, you can reveal a monster that's drawn during your draw phase to special summon that monster. That really can let you kickstart plays and get your deck really started in action, just as long as you already have that Dasher in your graveyard to happily kick things off. On the other hand, Destiny Hero Celestial is great for extended duels, as it can be banished during a future turn alongside that copy of Dasher to give you 2 free draws, as long as your hand is empty. This replenishes your resource and keeps your deck going, regardless of the archetype that you're running. So let's talk the benefits and utility of this engine, since if it got meta attention, it must be worthwhile. This engine is valuable in that each of the components are very useful on their own, unlike comparable fusion engines that need to be running normal monsters that are completely useless otherwise or complete bricks. Plus, Destroy Phoenix Enforcer, that is an absolute beast of a disruptive monster, destroying cards in the field, not even targeting, and destroying during even player's turn. Also, this engine is super small. It carries 5 required cards in the main deck, your Phoenix Enforcer, and then probably it also requires a Verte Anaconda in the extra deck, as this can be used to send that Fusion Destiny and pseudo-activate it straight from the deck. Also, Verte can be made with any 2 effect monsters, making it extremely versatile and that it can fit into so many different strategies. As a potential expansion or alternative for this engine, if you're not really feeling the Dasher or the Celestial techs, look to run Destiny Hero Malicious, which can banish itself to special summon another copy from your deck, alongside Destiny Hero Denier, one of the newer Destiny Hero monsters that can special summon itself from the graveyard whenever you have a Destiny Hero in your field or in your graveyard. Combine the 2 with each other, Malicious banishing itself to summon Denier, and the Denier returning that banished Malicious back to your deck, in order to get another Malicious summon for free, giving you effectively 3 link materials over the course of 2 monsters, On a future turn, of course, because Fusion Destiny locks you into only summoning Dark Hero monsters after it is resolved. Alright team, we made it to the final engine, the Halqifibrax engine, and this one adds a massive combo chain to just about any deck, as long as you want to invest your summon, your extra deck space, and your main deck space. So let's talk about it. Stick with me, as this is probably going to be the longest segment of this video. The star of this engine, and its namesake, is Crystron Halqifibrax, so I'll start there. Any Link monster that summons from the deck is inherently powerful, but Halqi takes this to the next level, as whenever it is Link summoned, you get to summon any level 3 or lower tuner from the deck whenever Halqi is summoned. It also carries an effect during the opponent's turn, but that comes into context later. While many decks already exist and use Halqifax, I want to focus specifically on the 3 best ways to get a 1 card or 1.5 card Halqifibrax combo just off of your normal summon. So that brings us to our 3 options. The first is Plague Spreader Zombie. The way to access Halqifibrax just from a single copy of Plague Spreader Zombie is by normal summoning it, Link summon Salamangreat Almirage with that copy of Plague Spreader, and then use Plague Spreader's effect, returning any other card from your hand back to the top of your deck, summoning Plague back from the graveyard, and now you have 1 tuner and 1 non-tuner to summon out your Halqifibrax. That's why I consider it a 1.5 card, as you definitely need a Plague Spreader, but any other card will do to match the combo. Moving along, if you want a true 1 card engine, Deep Sea Diva can be normal summoned and special summon another copy of itself from the deck, giving you 2 tuners, which in itself is a Halqifibrax. This also works pretty well with generic water decks, as Deep Sea Diva can be searched out by Deep Sea Aria as an additional tech option. Moving right along to the third, and one of the ultimately could be the best option to summon out Halqifibrax, is running Sangan. So 3 copies of Sangan, and 1 copy of Crusadia Arborea, as you normal summon Sangan, Link summon that Almirage. Sangan's effect will trigger, searching out a monster with 1500 or less attack, which will be your copy of Arborea, and then since Almirage points at a space on your main monster zone, you can special summon that copy of Arborea directly to it. And again, you got your tuner, you got your non-tuner, and you can make that single copy of Halqifibrax. Whichever option you choose, and you can go with 2 of these, you can go with just 1 of these options, this is really the heart and soul of kicking off this engine, and really should be considered required if you're going to build around Halqifibrax as an engine, and really try to expand off of that 1 Link summon play. So let's talk about what happens after you make your Link summon of Halqifibrax. The best option to tutor as your level 3 or lower tuner is Despot 001. Despot 1 is a level 1 tuner, it's a machine, but it also can special summon itself from the graveyard whenever 2 or more machine monsters are special summoned at the same time. This will be very important later on for some more of our combos, which I'm sure some of you already see coming. So let's go straight into some of those combos. Once you've summoned 001 with Halqifibrax, you can use those 2 to immediately Link summon Mecha Phantom Beast Auroradon, a Link 3 machine made up of machine monsters that immediately summons 3 Mecha Phantom Beast tokens to your board whenever it is Link summoned. Since those tokens are level 3 in machine, your Despot 001 will trigger, summoning itself right back to your field, giving you a net advantage of 1 001, 3 tokens, and your Auroradon on the field. So let's talk about where we go from there. Despot 001 plus 1 level 3 token will equal the new level 4 Synchro monster, Cupid Pitch, which can increase its level by 1 to make itself a level 5 Synchro tuner. This will be very important for later on in our combos, so just keep in mind that you want to set your Cupid Pitch to level 5 very early on. Next, we're going to return to looking at the other 2 tokens that Auroradon gave you, and tribute those off for Auroradon's second effect, to special summon one Mecham Phantom Beast monster directly from your deck. In this case, we're looking to Mecham Phantom Beast Coltwing, a level 4 that whenever it is special summoned while you control another Mecha Phantom Beast, such as Auroradon itself, Coltwing special summons 2 tokens of its own. And since you summon 2 machine tokens, your Despot 001 comes right back to the field, giving you a level 5 tuner, a level 1 tuner, 2 level 3 tokens, and your Coltwing, which shifts its level over time. So let's start synchro summoning, since we clearly have a lot of tuners and a lot of non-tuners. Cupid plus a level 3 token, so level 5 plus level 3, equals level 8, and the optimal choice here is Borreload Savage Dragon, as you already have that copy of Halqifibrax in your graveyard to equip to it when it's summoned, giving you 2 counters to negate 2 effects over the next turns. Now that you only have 1 token on your board, Mecha Phantom Beast Coltwing will now be a level 7 monster, and that comes important for the next step. But let's not get too far ahead of myself, because Cupid Pitch also has a second effect whenever it is sent to the graveyard for a synchro summon. As it inflicts damage, it would inflict 800 in this case since it's synchroed into Savage Dragon, and then you get to add 1 level 8 or lower monster with 600 defense from your deck to your hand. In this case, we're adding Creation Resonator, a level 3 tuner that can special summon itself from the hand while you control level 8 or higher synchro. Great, we already have that Savage Dragon. So summon that Creation Resonator from your hand and tune it with your level 7 Coltwing in order to make Baroness de Fleur, giving you yet a second high-powered synchro monster with a negation. And that leaves you with just your copy of 001 and one of your Mecha Phantom Beast tokens, so synchro those 2 fellows off and end up with a Herald of the Arclight. So let's talk about where we started and where we ended. We started with 1 normal summon of any of these monsters, potentially a Plague Spreader returning a card to hand as well, so we'll call it 1.5 cards. And you ended with 3 synchro monsters that each can negate a card activation or effect that your opponent tries to activate, and a copy of Auroradon on your field. That really isn't too shabby for a 1-card investment. And overall, the deck space in this, while it looks like you have to run 13 cards, you can really get away with only 1 or 2 of these summoning engines to really kickstart the Halqifibrax combo. The clear benefit to this engine is that end board of the multiple negations and the easy deck space, and that this can be paired with just about any deck that runs heavy back row, such as Eldritch. This is a great option to consider, and it used to be run in the past whenever Jet Synchron was around, but that was also before Cupid Pitch even existed. But what to keep in mind for the deck building cost, beyond the size of it and the size of the extra deck investment, is you have to be smart about what deck you use it in, because not every archetype can lock itself out of link summons, which is what Auroradon specifically does, as after it's link summoned and summons tokens, you cannot link summon for the rest of the turn. So all of your advantage and everything you commit to the board has to be in the form of Synchro monsters or Xyz monsters or Fusion monsters, the latter 2 of which are kind of difficult to really enact on when you have tokens. And also, not every archetype can afford using that normal summon on a random tuner or a Sangan, rather than focusing on their own archetype win condition. Because running a deck just around this, if your opponent has a way around negations, that's going to be a pretty sad day for your deck. So let's talk about modifications to this engine and how to make it even better. If you want to have the benefits of Halqifibrax without the investment of all these extra cards such as Despot 001, Coltwing, and Creation Resonator, if you really want to get away from running so many tech options that are one-offs that you don't necessarily want to draw, consider just running your favorite way to get into Halqifibrax and a single copy of Phantom King Hydride, as this is a level 3 tuner that can treat itself uniquely as a non-tuner whenever it's used as a synchro summon. So summon this out with Halqifibrax and go into your opponent's turn, because now is where Halqifibrax's second effect comes into play, as during your opponent's main or battle phase, you can banish it to special summon one tuner synchro from your extra deck. While you can pick any tuner synchro, we're going to specifically focus on those that can synchro summon during your opponent's turn, as that's where this engine is most impactful, this really small Halqifibrax engine. In most cases, you'll probably want to go with Shooting Riser Dragon, as it's a level 7 tuner that can synchro summon during your opponent's main phase. 7 plus 3 equals your level 10 Baron de Fleur, or you can also look to Sword Soul Supreme Sovereign Cheng Ying, which is another level 10 synchro that offers quite a high impact on the duel. If you want to get away from just the 7 plus 3 combo, use this with any of the following synchro monsters. Desert Locust for 6 plus 3 for a level 9 synchro summon. Axel Synchron, 5 plus 3 for a level 8 synchro summon. Crystron Quandax, 4 plus 3 for a level 7 synchro summon. And Formula Synchron, 2 plus 3 for a level 5 synchro summon. All of these options are available under Crystron Halqifibrax just being summoned and summoning that Hydride, so it really is a worthwhile investment for your deck. If you don't have a better normal summon or don't have a better use of your extra deck, you can run just a small engine and not rely on this really long combo chain. And so at the end of the day, this smaller engine I'm talking about, so Halqi, a way to summon him, and Hydride, really is a way to add some flexibility or versatility to just about any archetype, and thus definitely worth exploring the possibilities, especially if you run tuners already in your deck. Wow, I really have spent a lot of time talking about engines today, huh? So let's close out this video. We've talked a lot about a lot of different engines, such as generic engines, improving draw power and consistency, getting to your combo pieces quicker. We saw engines to see even more combo pieces, specifically for win decks, letting you draw into your cards faster and really dig out of your deck what you need. We talked about a flexible engine giving you link material, and another flexible engine giving you fusion material. We even talked about an engine that's generic and fits into so many different decks, all needing to affect monsters. And lastly, we talked about a whole array of options to run alongside Halqifibrax, and really start making advantage of your extra deck, synchro summons, and a lot of abused link monsters. Hopefully this second video on engines built upon my first, showing you some new engines you hadn't necessarily been exposed to before, while also discussing what you should consider when trying to utilize both these engines and any other engine you want to use in your deck builds. Most importantly, I always wish that some of my videos inspire you to try something new, with other themes that you haven't necessarily worked out before. Remember, being creative, having fun with the game, it's all about trying out these new concepts, or just being exposed to them, until you find the right one to resonate with your duel strategy, and to build it for yourself. And if this second overview of various engines helped you get to that, I'm calling it a success. It was actually due to the response to my first video that I even made this so quickly. So thanks for your positive feedback, and hopefully I got to show you something different. So thanks for listening. Please continue to provide this feedback on my channel side chat style of video, and I'll catch you next week with brand new profiles. So for now, Quincy out.